What's up, everybody? Judges 1 through 15. Let's do it. These chapters focus on Israel's repetitiveness. As you guys probably read it already, it's rebellion, oppression, crying out to God. God saves them every single time. And the way that God saves them is through judges. It's through specifically not kings, not a government body, but a judge. Someone that would receive the news, receive what was happening, and then God would use them to decide what would be fair, what would be right, and how to correct it. And they would basically have to judge for themselves based off of what God would tell them to fix their problems, to address their issues, and ultimately to change their ways. Actually, the whole book of Judges is going to be Israel just repeatedly doing the same things that God warned them not to do through Moses and Joshua, and the cycle just continuing to go through the same nonsense over and over again. So chapters 4 through 5 is about Deborah. Now, Deborah is a prophetess, meaning she is a prophet. There's a female and a prophet. And not only that, but she is Israel's own female judge. Now, some people believe, or the debate is, that Deborah was only in leadership because of how weak the men of Israel were. The other people believe that this is actually an example of how God can care for his oppressed people, almost like a mother caring for her children. I believe that it's both. I don't believe that there would be a need for a female judge if the men had been stepping into their responsibilities, their roles, and to actually being men and leading the charge. But instead, God rose up a woman to be able to navigate and to delegate and to execute what God was trying to do in his people. And there's something that we see in that even today, that God will use whoever he needs to use to be able to fulfill his purpose and his promises in our lives. Chapters 6 and 8 talk about this guy named Gideon. Now, Gideon is a weirdo. Gideon is this weak, feeble, humble guy, a tree cutter. This dude is a simple guy. And we see this man deal with insecurity, fear, hesitation, and God is patient with him. When God first called him, he called him while he was hiding in fear, and yet God called him a mighty warrior. Saw the potential in Gideon. God saw who Gideon could become. He didn't just see him in that moment. We're talking about the same guy that went out with 32,000 men, and God said, "No, that's too much," and then sent him in with the 300. What? God knew who he was picking and who he was trusting in when he was lifting up a judge in Gideon. And it ensured that Israel wouldn't be able to take any credit for the things that they were doing. And it shows that God's power is ultimately going to bless and use whoever he needs to use, like we saw with Deborah. Now, another cool thing is that we see that God is patient when we doubt. Gideon asked God for confirmation time and time again. He wanted reassurance that what he was seeing and what he was hearing wasn't from anything else but the Lord. He also started with being obedient within himself. We see that before he could lead Israel in any type of way, that God commanded him to destroy the idols in his own house. And that's where leadership starts. It starts within yourself. It starts at home. It starts with you being able to make a daily surrender and commit yourself to the ways of the Lord. Judges 13 through 15, we see the story of Samson. Now, if you don't know about Samson, he is probably one of the most famous stories, Delilah deceiving him and all these things. But I really want to kind of bring something into focus. Gideon and Deborah have both showed us that God will use whoever he chooses to use to be able to not just embarrass the fake and the pagan and the debaucherous, but God also using unlikely and usually unfit people to do things in a way that only God can do. With Samson's story, we see that God calls him from before he was even born. Said, "Hey, I'm going to give this woman a son. You're going to treat him like a Nazarite. He's going to get raised. I'm going to use him. My spirit will be over him." Blah, blah, blah. Gives him all this word, all this promise, all this potential in Samson, just for Samson to be very prideful with the blessing and the anointing that is over his life. And we see that God uses Samson's boldness just to prove a point. When he went to go see the Philistines, he saw a woman that he wanted, and then he went and told his parents. His parents were like, "Why can't you marry one of your relatives over here, one of our own people?" And then it says literally that they didn't know that God was allowing this to happen to prove himself. God was using this opportunity to do something through it. And we saw the story. We saw the using of the donkey bone and all this type of craziness. We're going to see how his life continues to unfold. But as of right now, we're seeing that God is using 3 very specific people, all for the same purpose. I am going to use the person you least expect to glorify my name. And that's all I have for you guys today. You guys have a good one.